recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the Black Science Fiction Society.com website. This is our April 18th It Will Never Be Spring in Chicago show for 2014. My name is William Hayashi. I'll be your host for today, and our special guest for this week is Nicole Sconiers, and she is a creative writer. She is a film, I would say, screenwriter and producer, and probably, again, another one of our multiple threats of talent that we have here on BlackScienceFiction.com website. And welcome to the show, Nicole. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you're coming to us from traffic, right? In traffic?
No, actually, I parked. I'm on my way to a screening of an independent film called Vanishing Pearl. So I support indie, and that's where I am.
Okay, and so you're in LA right now. Let's get the preliminaries out of the way, because for those of you who just tuned in, we're going to have a shortened time with the guest. She's only here for about 40 minutes, so we're going to do kind of an accelerated version of the interview, and then I'll just do my stand-up act after that. Did you grow up in California, or are you a transplant, or what's the deal there?
I am a transplant. I grew up in Pennsylvania. After college, I lived in Baltimore, and something told me that I needed to be in LA because I wanted to write screenplays. And so I packed up my apartment. I packed 2 suitcases. I took a Greyhound bus for 3 days cross-country to California, and that was about 14 years ago, and here I am.
And so let's cut a lot of this stuff out. Do you feel that your move gave you, the successful underpinnings to be a screenwriter in essentially in Hollywood?
Absolutely. I think that my move taught me that it's okay to take a risk. It's okay to just jump and not know if the net is going to appear, or just hope that the net is going to appear.
And so
it gave me fodder for my writing.
Fodder in what way? Let's ask. I mean, in most of your writing, do you write in a particular genre?
I didn't at first. When I initially wanted to come to LA to write screenplays, it was comedy, dramedies, the quirky black girl, looking for a man, preferably hot. And my writing evolved since then. Thank God. At least I hope it did, because I tackle issues that black women face, from our hair to being fetishized for our hair and our skin and our bodies, and it's a little bit more serious. I think I still have that quirky voice in my writing, but the subject matter is pithier.
Okay, and how many screenplays have you had shot?
How many screenplays have I had shot? I had a screenplay option called Bless the Mic, and I've had that screenplay option several times, and each time the funding fell through. So this past October, I shot my first short film called One Last Request. I actually executive produced, wrote, and directed my first short film in October, because to me, trying to go through the studio system of trying to get a screenplay sold and to tell these type of stories, I wanted to have that autonomy, and so I just took matters into my own hands and said, I can put a team together and let's get this film shot.
Mhm. I work pretty frequently in the the filmmaking industry here in Chicago, and our joke is that LA is the place you go for your dreams to die, and of course there's always a germ of truth and things like that, because it is a very difficult system to break into. You have about 1.5% of the people out there who work in the film industry are employed full time. Everybody else has another job or a square job. And it is tough, especially if you're a writer. And if you're a writer of a niche programming, kind of like you, a black subject film, it can be pretty daunting trying to climb that hill to get the kind of recognition and to get people to treat you seriously. You've been there now for 13 years. What do you find is probably the biggest hurdle that you're facing in trying to get the visibility that you obviously need in order to be what you and I would consider to be successful?
I think probably the biggest hurdle is that I don't tell traditional stories. One of the first scripts that I shot was called Bless the Mic, and it's about a stuttering young minister who falls in love with a homeless poet. And I met with some agents. They loved the storyline, but they kept saying, can you make him a little more gangster? They wanted to change this character because he wasn't, I guess, hard enough. He wasn't street enough. And I'm like, no, that's not me. That's not the story that I'm trying to tell. And so that was a big hurdle, trying to hold on to my voice and not let anyone come in and tell me that it was too, it wasn't black enough, or, it wasn't hood enough. And I think that a lot of writers of color face that hurdle of trying to cling to your voice and not let Hollywood come in and try to reshape the art, the content, that you're creating.
Well, I mean, we've seen very well how that is happening. I mean, Robert Townsend did what was that? Was
Hollywood
that Hollywood Shuffle?
Yeah,
Hollywood Shuffle.
And
people don't realize that that's a documentary.
Right.
I mean, people look at that and they go, ah, ha, 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 look at all those stereotypes, but it is kind of sad. And unfortunately, trying to do something independent around that massive studio system has got to be a real pain in the butt for you, because people are not going to listen to your voice. They're not going to listen to your creativity because they already have their own stereotypical memes that if you don't abide by those memes, you don't get any play. And when I say play, I mean, your screenplays are not taken seriously.
Right.
You keep butting up against all of that stuff. So it is tough. You chose a tough road to hoe, but obviously after 13 years, you're not giving up very easily, are you?
No, and I choose to reframe it and look at the people like Issa Rae and the director of Dear White People, who went outside the studio system, who put this content online, created this compelling web series, Awkward Black Girl, and like I said, the trailer for Dear White People, and were able to amass an audience who was hungry for this content. And once they did that, then the studio started calling. So I like the way that they flipped the script. They changed the paradigm. They said, I have a vision, I have a strong voice, and I'm going to amass an audience. I'm going to get in contact with the demographic who wants to, see this content. And once they did and they were able to leverage that content, then Hollywood came calling. And so I did struggle for a lot of years just hustling, hitting the pavement with my screenplay. I mean, I would go to the club. My screenplay would be in the back of my car. Like, it was at my hip. Whoever I saw who looked like they were in the industry, hey, I'm a screenwriter, and you really get frustrated because you know that you're talented, and beyond talent, you know that you have this content that will resonate with a certain segment of society, and you just want to get it out there by any means necessary. And so when you get those rejections and those doors closing, it's like, do I give up? And for a while, I did. I did give up on my dream. I just was like, maybe I'm not cut out to do this. I don't really have a thick skin. I don't like it when people tell me no, so I'm just going to get a day job and see what happens. But every time I tried to let that spark die out, it just kept flickering back to life. I couldn't kill it. You know, I kept saying, I got to stop writing. I'm not a writer. And the more I said that, the more these ideas would just come bombarding my mind. Like, no, you're a writer. The Bartman Bag, you know, Escape from Beckyville, you know, Bless the Mite, The Brown Rose. They just kept coming. And I said, okay, I accept this. I accept my mission. And I just have to make it happen by any means necessary.
And so right now, you know, as we sit here, how many potential projects do you have in your quiver just waiting for the opportunity for someone to give you a fair shake, you know, or to sit down and listen to you seriously?
Well, I'm working on a short film called One Last Request. I just directed that. That will be released later this spring. I actually have an idea for a web series that I like to say, the Black Woman's Fifth Dimension, like a Twilight Zone for sisters, that's based around the subject matter in Beckyville, how Black women are marginalized in this society, how we are rendered invisible. But I'm trying to put this Twilight Zone-esque spin on this web series. And so I'm shooting my next short film in May, actually. We're getting ready to go into pre-production on that. And I'm working on my short stories, like The Bartman Bag. I'm working on another collection of short stories in the vein of Escape from Beckyville. So I got a lot I'm juggling. I got a lot going on. And all of these projects are under the umbrella of my production company, which is Lavender Pinocchio. And so that's the production company that I'm starting right now as the parent company for these projects.
Well, that begs the question: how did you name that? How did you come up with that name?
I'm glad you asked. So Lavender Pinocchio is a variety of brown rose. So when I wrote this screenplay called The Brown Rose, which actually made it to the semifinals for the Sundance Screenwriters Lab, I wrote a screenplay about a black guitar player from the hood who wants to use her talent to get her out of the inner city. And as I was researching the screenplay, the Brown Rose just came to my mind because that's what the young girl, she's 17 years old, that's what she called herself. And I was like, no, that can't be right. Brown roses don't exist. I didn't know brown roses actually exist in nature, that they actually grow from the soil. So when I researched it and I found that these beautiful brown roses actually exist, I got so excited. I was calling and texting every black woman I know. Like, did you know brown roses existed? And none of them, like across the board, none of them knew that brown roses are not unicorns, that they actually do exist in nature. And so Lavender Pinocchio is a variety of brown rose. And so I named my company that because it's a metaphor for black women and how we are rendered invisible in this society, but we are just as strong and beautiful and durable as the other roses.
You know, and that also brings something to my mind. I mean, when you talk about how difficult it is for you to get any kind of traction in bringing something that obviously, I mean, let's just do it numerically. You know, black women make up 6% of the U.S. population. You know, and that's obviously that's not a majority, but
right.
That's still some pretty damn significant numbers.
Absolutely.
And so you know, if you were just going numerically instead of being a risk-averse Hollywood, you would say, okay, well, we could produce this and put it where women would see it and be able to still get, you know, still make some money off of it. You know, as long as you didn't ask for like $100 million budget, which you aren't going to get.
Clearly.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Spike Lee will never get $100 million to do a film either. Spike Lee can't get white people's money, okay? And you know, he had a great joke because he crowdsourced the funding for his last movie, and he stated, he said, you know, people think that this is such a radical idea, but every black independent movie has been crowdsourced because that's how you get your money. You ask your friends, you ask your, affinity, businesses to help you out. So, okay, so if you decide to go the full-on independent route, because you find that the studio system is not going to be very, forthcoming in helping you out, how do you envision doing that? Because, I mean, obviously the biggest hurdle is getting the necessary funding in order to do a movie.
Well, right now I'm not focusing on feature-length films. I'm focusing on film shorts. Like One Last Request was less than 15 minutes long. And this next movie, Distance, that I'm filming next month is about the same length. So projects of that size are basically micro budgets. And so I come out of my pocket and I fund these movies, or I get investors. I get my friends who believe in my vision and want to see it come to life. I even had a stranger for One Last Request donate money to me. I didn't even know this person, and she donated online to me. She had heard about what I was doing. So because it's a micro budget, it's a lot more accessible than if I were to do a feature film that would cost upwards of $100,000. But my goal is, if I can create this web series and get enough people watching and tuning in and sharing and liking the content that I'm putting out, then that will generate the funds down the road for a feature film.
Yeah, Hollywood does know that content is king, but as I said,
Absolutely.
they are risk averse. And then when they do see something that just blows the doors off, think Blair Witch Project. I forget how little they spent on that, but then Hollywood is the quickest industry in the world to jump on something and crap on it. Here's the entomology of what I see happening with you. You put together a very, very successful web series. They come to you and they say, we would like to do this. And at the beginning, they give you whatever license necessary in order to get it done in the same way. But then what happens when they do a David Chappelle on you? That's something that a lot of people don't understand.
Right.
That is the natural evolution, because as soon as you are successful and you're doing it your way, some whiz-whacker who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about is going to come to you and go, since we have the money, we're looking at maybe making this small change here because we think it's appropriate.
Right.
And they always ignore the fact that you are already successful. You don't need their tweaking. But I'm a screenwriter and a novelist, and the editor's job is to pee on whatever you produce to make it partly theirs.
Right.
So
I guess
I'm
just an eternal optimist, and maybe that's why I've been able to survive in this industry or on the outskirts of this industry, because I always think that I'm out here for a reason, and I'm still hustling to, put these stories out here, to let my voice be heard. And sometimes you have to reinvent yourself. Sometimes you have this idea that you think is just amazing, and oh my God, people are going to love it, and you put so much energy into it, and then it might flop. So it's like, do you give up on your dream because that idea that you had didn't do as well as you thought, or do you move on to the next? And so I'm just going to keep moving on to the next project, whatever it is, and just keep putting it out there. I mean, that's all I can do is just put it out there and, hope that the demographic will be attracted to it.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it may flop because somebody who you pitched the idea to couldn't wrap their head around it. I mean, let's be very honest. These are not the smartest people in the world, and they have a great business model. They have a great business model. Nobody would fight with that. I mean, the brilliance of taking 12-cent comic books from the 1970s and turning it into the movie blockbuster juggernaut that Marvel is was brilliant.
Right.
Okay,
It was.
you got some stupid ass toys that changed from apartment buildings to robots and trucks to robots, and that's a boatload of money.
Right.
You have a poorly written porno, book, 50 Shades of Grey, that is just horribly written, but because people all of a sudden glommed onto it because it wasn't, it didn't have a whole lot of big words in it, all of a sudden that's the next big thing. I mean,
right,
this is Hollywood.
But is that Hollywood, or whose fault is it, or is it anybody's fault that those types of products take off the way they do? I mean, clearly the author struck a chord with her readers because she sold like 10 million copies. So clearly people are hungry for that type of content. And so I could sit back and get mad and say, I can write circles around her and, how does she get put on and I didn't? Or I could say, okay, there's a spot for everybody. She found her niche. Now let me go out and find mine. I believe that I have a strong voice. I believe that I have talent as a writer. Maybe that's up for, maybe that's subjective, but I'm just going to put my work out there and just hope that my audience finds me. And
no, you have to.
Other people, because
no. I didn't mean to be knocking on them.
No,
I
know you're not knocking, but I do question too when I see certain content, and I question certain content, and people flock to that content. I mean, do you blame the author? Do you blame the people that love it and consume it and share it and make it number one and make it harder for content that might be a little bit more intelligent?
Out of profile. No, you're right. If it's out of profile, it is much harder. But I think that where the breakdown, the conceptual breakdown, the intellectual breakdown, where the rubber meets the road is who's willing to fund the marketing. Because Americans are lazy. All right, they don't go and nobody goes to let's put it this way, very few people go to the library anymore and go through the stacks and go, ooh, this book sounds interesting by reading the jacket on the back, and then they check that book out and read it. First of all, most of us don't have that much time. I mean, it's tough to make enough money to pay your bills. And when you talk about, who can take out, every other Saturday and go to the library and spend a few hours there, that is tough. So people are relying more and more on mass media to make those decisions for them. Right. And so you have something brilliant. You have something that will resonate with a pretty decent-sized segment of society.
Thank you.
Your challenge is, how do you find somebody who will buy into that sufficiently enough to spend the $250,000 in order to get somebody to take a second look, or to spend the $1 million so that you can actually get you can make it to all of the what do they call those film festivals. Yeah. The film festivals, so that you can actually get, how do you get Lionsgate to find you if they don't know who you are? It's the catch-20. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think that you have to start with a compelling idea. And once you start with that idea, like, for instance, a web series, then you just put it out there, and you put out the next one and the next one, and you build your audience. The only thing that you can do once you have those ideas is put it out there in some shape or form, whether it's a short story, whether it's a trailer like they did with Dear White People, whether it's a web series like Issa Rae did with Awkward Black Girl, and find your audience. And for me, it's a learning curve for me, because it can be intimidating to put your work out there in the form of a film, a short film. But because not everyone might get your vision and your voice, but if it rings true to you and you're speaking your truth, you're writing your truth as you see it, then the only thing you can do is release it. and just hope that the people that you're writing for, that this material, this content will resonate with them so that they will share it. You know, what I'm learning, I just joined Twitter this week under Brown Rose Films, which is my production company. And what I'm learning is you get bombarded with so many tweets from indie artists and musicians and directors, and you can't support everyone financially because, first of all, you'll go broke. But you can do something to support an indie artist, whether it's favoriting a tweet, whether it's telling people about their project. For instance, I'm going tonight to see Vanishing Pearls, which is a documentary about the BP oil spill, and I heard about it from a friend on Twitter. You know, and so I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm tweeting about it, and I'm helping other indie artists to publicize their project. You know, even if I can't contribute financially, there's something I can do, some type of grassroots effort that I can embrace to help get the word out. And so, to me, that's the beauty of social media. You know, somebody hears about the Bartman bag, for instance, the short story that I just read, and shares it with their network. You know, and so it becomes viral, which is my hope. And to me, that's how you build revolutions. You just put the content out and you release it. You can't really put any expectations on, I want to get 50,000 views or whatever. You just have to hope that I did the best job that I could. I wrote the most compelling story that I could write. This is in line with my vision and my voice and my truth. And I released it, and I'm just hoping that it resonates with the right audience so that we can find each other.
I think what you're doing is perfect. I mean, obviously, once you get your content out there and you can start driving people to it, you know, and then they tell someone, and then they tell someone, and then they tell someone, you know, that kind of word of mouth campaign can definitely get traction, especially if you resonate with the people who you're trying to reach. And I think it sounds so much like, you know, this is right up your alley, and I really think that this is going to be successful for you.
Thank you.
And the other thing is, you know, obviously there are all kinds of people who are at, BlackScienceFictionSociety.com who are interested in supporting, mentoring, passing the word along. You know, it's those kinds of communities that you want to belong to reap the benefit of people who will actually sit still, check out what you have, and not automatically devalue it because, oh, well, she's not a Scorsese. Oh, she's not a what's her name, Sophie, Godfather guy. Anyway, so yeah, exactly. So I mean, that's such a needful component. And the nice thing about social media, the nice thing about self-publishing, the nice thing about getting, you know, one of these nice, you know, Canon or Nikon cameras where you can actually produce your own movies, and just having a computer. The nice thing is the accessibility that didn't exist before. Yeah. So it does make it makes it financially more palatable because, you know, if you're willing to put in the work, you can get a lot done, you know, and actually move your own work forward. So, I mean, obviously, we would love to have you keep in touch. Let people on BSFS know what you're doing, so that we can promote and so that we can, you know, see things. You know, I interviewed Kevin. I'm blanking on his name. He did Destination Planet Negro, and I did his show, and then I found out that he was going to be in Chicago a day later. So I went down to the Cisco Center, met him, talked to him. And you know, took pictures and shared. So this is what we have to do because we don't have access to the studio system. I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I was going to say I'm just grateful to the Black Science Fiction Society because they supported me from day one when I came out with Escape from Beckyville, and I didn't even really know what genre I was writing in. I hadn't even heard of speculative fiction until I was pursuing my master's in grad school, and one of my mentors was like, this is speculative fiction, you know, and so that genre resonated with me. And then I was led to the Black Science Fiction Society, and I joined and met some incredible people and writers and artists that I still keep in contact with to this day. And so I just want to thank you guys for showing me that love when I first came out 3 years ago with Escape from Beckyville and was trying to find, who I was within this genre.
It is a pleasure, and the other thing that I find very, very satisfying is seeing somebody succeed, because the odds are steep.
Yes,
they're not insurmountable, but the odds are steep. And as I said about like 50 Shades and other projects like that
right.
that may not really, they don't have the kind of quality you would love to see being passed around America. But the fact of the matter is, you just never know if that one person who might be able to speak to that other person or may drive your success forward, because all of a sudden they see what you have in whole cloth, not just talking about a screenplay or anything. So having the web series, being able to use that as a marketing piece is probably the most effective way for you to get eyeballs on your work. And so, yeah. Where are you in the project right now?
Well, we're filming Distance, which will be the first short film in the series. And my goal is to release one short a quarter. So I'm a little behind, but, actually I'm not behind, because one last request, which I filmed last October, which I'm releasing later in the spring, it's not part of the series, but it'll be an introduction to first of all, my voice and what type of stories that I want to tell. Like I said, the Twilight Zone for Black women. And that's what I hope to roll out, at least 3 short films before the end of the year.
Man, that sounds great. And as Jarvis said before the show started, it would be great if you put these milestones on the calendar. Also, anytime you're going to have an appearance, anytime that you may be, you may have a showing of any of your work, even a trailer or what have you, post that up on the events calendar at blacksciencefictionsociety.com, so that people, there are times when somebody may not be doing something for a weekend. They'll pop over to the calendar and they go, oh, man, look at this. It's at the DuSable Museum here in Chicago. I could just go to that, So that's another way to help engender support, because people, there's nothing better than having someone meet you face-to-face and laud your work and to tell you that they appreciate what you have. And speaking of which, what kind of reception are you getting from people who've had the opportunity to take a look at, the kind of the nuts and bolts of the series that you want to put together?
Well, I haven't released One Last Request yet. That won't be released until later this spring. But the idea for the Bartman Bag, the short story that I just released, that I'm releasing as a serial, I've gotten some good response, first from friends and family. Friends and family are always going to support you, and so I start there. And it's a little slow going, I'm not going to lie. I just released it this week, though, so I'm hopeful that I will get readers of this short story. And what I'm doing is offering it as a free download on my site, lavenderpinocchio.com, that readers can go to, check out the first stories in the series, and then come back each week to read what happens next.
And of course, that builds traffic.
Absolutely. And I really think that this story will resonate with a lot of women of color. It's the story of a young black girl, young black girls in a futuristic society who are abducted and skinned to make couture purses. And so I know the subject matter is grisly, but I really feel that young black girls in our society are among the most marginalized, and I wanted to be a voice for them. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just imagine, like, wow, what if we lived in a society where these young black teen girls are hunted, snatched away from their families, taken to a slaughterhouse, and killed to make couture purses, and the architect of the bag is a black man, is a rapper turned designer. So you have interracial, hatred, shadeism going on as well.
Now,
so it's controversial, but I want to spark a dialogue.
No. I mean, it actually sounds very interesting. Although, as someone with a PhD in clinical psychology, I could have a field day with that premise.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of layers to it.
I'm sure. You don't have any issues you want to talk about before we close out, do you, Nicole?
Well, the main issue, like I said, is yeah, you put me on the couch, right? It's a commodification of black women's bodies. You see all the time features like big booties and dark skin and pouty lips that are that look good on every race except for black women, who are never praised for having these features, but then they are co-opted, by women of other races.
Sure.
And I wanted to challenge that. I wanted to examine that through this story and have this discussion with other black women. Hey, what would you do if this were your daughter or your sister? Because the girls at the slaughterhouse are specifically chosen for being dark complected, because the darker the bag, the more premium the purse.
Okay.
So you could say that the architect of the bag, the designer of the bag, he had some shadeism issues that he's dealing with.
I think it's a brilliant concept, to be very honest with you, because I mean it's as brilliant as, I believe it was Jonathan Swift who did A Modest Proposal in Ireland.
What I wanted to, yes, like A Modest Proposal, absolutely.
Yeah, and for those of you who are laughing out there, I read a book or two. So, we're coming up to your time, so that you don't end up being late where you have to go. I want to thank you for being here, for the time that you have shared. Well, I guess we'll see if we could reschedule and maybe get you on for the full show, maybe at another time when you have the full time to be on the show. Is there anything? Well, for those who want to check out your work and see where things are going, people go to www.lavenderpinocchio.com and see Nicole's. Well, I guess, do you have kind of like do you blog there so that people can tell where you are in your process?
Yes, I blog at lavenderpinocchio.com. They can also find me at NicoleSconiers.com/blog, and my last name is spelled Sconiers. If they're on Twitter, I'm Brown Rose Films on Twitter. And if they could just hashtag the Bartman bag just to start the discussion. Like, the reason I'm presenting this content as a free download is because I want as many people as possible to read it and absorb this material. And now let's come together and just talk about what it means to be a person of color in this society, what it means to be seen as an accessory, how does it feel to be seen and not seen at the same time. So those are the issues that I'd love people to tweet me about or Facebook me or just drop a comment on my blog.
You just between you and me, you're very, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Actually, well, no, you are, because now you've kind of empowered me to go out there and blog about being a half black, half Japanese lesbian living in a man's body.
There you go.
So,
give me credit, please.
but I will. I will definitely give you that. But Nicole, thank you very much for spending time with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Oh yeah, and have a great opening. I'm sorry. This is is this like a premiere? Or
Yeah, so this is their premiere weekend here in LA. It's called Vanishing Pearls. I'm not affiliated with them, but it's an indie film about the BP oil spill, and I just wanted to come out tonight and show my support. And it's at the Downtown Independent for those people in LA. Starts at 7.
very good. All right. Well, look. Thank you for your time. Drive safely,
Absolutely.
and we'll catch up with you soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. I'll be on the Black Science Fiction Society website this weekend, interacting with all the members.
Awesome.
You guys take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello? Hello? Anybody with us? Hello?